This is Ivan Turkniov, the top hacker for a group of Russian insider trading hedge funds raking in hundreds of millions of dollars every year. He's just been arrested by a team of Ukrainian intelligence service officials and American Secret Service agents. Nonetheless, the people he works for are so well connected to the Ukrainian authorities that instead of going to prison, he's let free only a few days later, while the American agents are forced to leave the country. However, the US doesn't like to get played, and as such, begins one of the wildest manhunts for a massive network of hackers, corrupt officials, insider traders, and millions upon millions of illegally obtained dollars. This is the story of Egg plc and the biggest insider trading hack the US has ever seen. This video is sponsored by NordPass, but more on that later. Late 2009, somewhere in Ukraine. This is Ivan Turkniov. He's 21 years old, and like most people his age, he wants to make money, and he wants it fast. However, after the 2008 financial crash, young Ukrainians like Ivan weren't able to find work easily, so he spends a lot of time online, specifically on Russian cybercrime forums. Every now and then, he joins up with some people on the forum to do small hacks here and there. But this night, something was different. While he's going through job postings, he comes across an advertisement by someone called Egg plc. He's looking for hackers to infiltrate brokerage accounts in brokerage firms, and most importantly, he's willing to pay well. Ivan thinks this might be an easy job and contacts Egg plc. But what he doesn't know is that what he thinks to be a simple job would turn into a massive financial fraud operation. A scheme so big it would be considered the biggest insider trading cybercrime scandal the world has ever seen. February 26, 2010. Kiev, Ukraine. It's a cold morning, and while Ukraine's capital is slowly waking up, one person has been wide awake all night. It's Ivan Turkniov, and he's currently pacing around his bedroom. He's nervous because his first job for Egg plc is supposed to go down today, and he really wants the money. Suddenly, the phone beeps. It's a message from his new boss, and it contains the name of his first target. Ivan quickly fires up his PC and gets to work. His first method of attack is using SQL injections, so he begins by scanning for vulnerable marketwired.com URLs to find exploitable weaknesses. To keep it short, SQL injection is a way for hackers to exploit flaws in how websites interact with databases. By injecting malicious SQL code into input fields, like search bars, login forms, or even URL parameters, they can trick the system into executing unauthorized commands. This might allow access to login credentials, unpublished press releases, or even full dumps of back-end databases. In simple terms, hackers use SQL injection to make websites do things they were never meant to do and expose data that was never meant to be seen. But back to Ivan. He found some vulnerabilities and managed to get his hands on a few unreleased documents related to some of the biggest US companies. He saved as many as he could and uploaded them to a server operated by Egg plc. A few hundred miles away, somewhere in Russia, Egg plc meets with a private group of Russian and Ukrainian traders. This group allegedly includes a man called Pavel Dubovoy, a member of a wealthy Ukrainian family and someone who will play a massive role in the future. But for now, this group of traders goes through all of the hacked press releases. They discover that several companies are about to release positive news and place a series of long trades. Either way, after the weekend passes, the stolen press releases are published by MarketWired, and the global market begins to trade based on that information. Meanwhile, Egg plc and his group of traders watch their money increase every second, and just a few hours after the market opens, all of them close their positions. The first operation was a complete success, and Ivan was paid 40% of the profits each trader made. It was a big payday for everyone involved, but this was just the beginning of a generational insider trading ring. Early 2011, Atlanta, United States. It's early in the morning when Arkady Dubovoy and his business partner, Alexander Garkusha, both working for Pavel Dubovoy, are inside a restaurant at Atlanta Airport. They're meeting with a man named Vitaly Korchevsky, a wealthy ex-Morgan Stanley portfolio manager and a truly massive figure in Philadelphia's Russian-speaking evangelical Baptist community. He's a pastor, owns his own church, and has helped hundreds of immigrant families build stable lives, often letting them live in his own houses, helping them find jobs, and providing whatever else they might need. But today, he's not there for church-related matters. Instead, he's strictly there to discuss a deal with the two businessmen. They explain that they have a great investment opportunity for Vitaly and show him a few printed press releases, claiming they obtained them before they were officially released. But Vitaly is unimpressed. All the releases have already been published. Thinking the two are talking nonsense, he simply walks away. And this was bad. They just told a pastor that they potentially had access to insider information, and if he talked, the entire scheme could fall apart. 2011, Georgia, United States. Over the next few days, Arkady pushes Vitaly for another meeting, but when they finally meet again, it doesn't go according to plan. The server with the hacked press releases is inaccessible. It simply doesn't work, and Vitaly is extremely pissed off. And even though he's had enough of the two, he agrees to one final meeting. During this meeting, Ivan, the hacker, and Egg PLC, the ringleader, made sure that everything worked, and Vitaly was finally able to see that the two men weren't lying. In front of him were hundreds of unreleased press releases, and all he had to do to access them was to use a trading account under Arkady's name and pay a percentage of his winning trades to Arkady, who then split it with the rest of the group. The pastor looks at the two men and, after a moment of silence, agrees to participate in their scheme. August 3rd, 2011, Philadelphia, United States. It's 3:50 p.m. when Vitaly, the pastor, enters the lobby of his apartment building. Suddenly, his phone rings. He receives news that a drug developed by Dendreon Pharmaceuticals, a California-based biotech company, will not meet expected sales. It's a massive opportunity, but the market closes in just 7 minutes. Korchevsky quickly logs into his trading account and, within seconds, purchases 1,100 put options on the biotech company. This means that if the company's stock value drops, he stands to make a profit. And only 1 minute later, at 4:01 p.m., the company announced the bad news. The next day, just as the markets opened, Forbes published an article about it, leading the stock to plummet almost 70% in a few hours. And Vitaly's profit is a sweet $2.3 million, of which he had to pay $230,000 to Arkady. And this commission really bothered Vitaly, who decided to open a few other accounts under other people's names to avoid paying commissions to the rest of the group, a move that would lead to serious consequences in the future. But Vitaly Korchevsky was just one of many traders who had been recruited and were paying commissions to Arkady and his brother Pavel Dubovoy. They were making hundreds of thousands in commissions every month. On the other hand, Egg PLC and Valerie, who we'll mention later, were making even more since Pavel Dubovoy was just one of his many middlemen. And Ivan Turkniov, the hacker breaking into press release companies, who was not only using SQL attacks anymore and had completely transformed his life. From living in a small, old apartment, he went to living in a mansion in Kiev's ultra-wealthy district, Konkazaspa, bought supercars, and sat on an almost comical amount of money, all while he supposedly didn't have a job. The gang was truly living their best lives, but what none of them knew was that everything was about to change. 2012, Kiev, Ukraine. It's a warm spring night in the capital of Ukraine when the now 24-year-old Ivan Turkniov is partying with a bunch of his friends. But they're not just normal people. All of them are talented cybercriminals who met in Ukraine's pretty big cybercrime scene. But in the middle of bottles, smoke, and beautiful women, Ivan, in a drunken boast, makes a crucial mistake. He reveals that he's been making hundreds of thousands by hacking into press release distribution services, stealing unpublished information, and giving it to a mysterious figure known only as Egg PLC. All of the people at the table are already drunk and simply congratulate him about it. All of them except for one. Alexander Laremenko is completely sober and gets envious of Ivan. He wants in on the scheme and a big chunk of Ivan's business. A few days after Alexander overheard Ivan's drunken boast, he meets up with another hacker named Vadim Lermolovich. That night, Alexander explains that he wants a piece of the pie, but needs Vadim's help to pull it off. Eventually, Vadim agrees, but he also knows that Ivan won't invite them into the scheme willingly, and this means that there's only one possible solution: to hack Business Wire themselves, but not to steal any data. Instead, it's to locate Ivan's malware and take control of it. Luckily for them, Alexander has worked with Ivan on a few small hacks before, so he understands his workflow and knows how to find Ivan's malware. There was just one issue. They still had to get into Business Wire's network first, and this wouldn't be an easy task. Either way, the two fire up their computers and get to work. They spent the entire night trying to access Business Wire's systems, and after dozens of energy drinks and cigarettes, they finally found their way inside. Once they did, Alexander searched for Ivan's RAT, a remote access Trojan that enables the attacker to take control of a computer. And since Ivan's RATs usually followed the same patterns, Alexander found it relatively quickly. Next, the two most likely redirected the RAT's command and control traffic to their own servers, or outright modified the RAT's configuration, which effectively cut off Ivan's access to Business Wire's servers. Finally, they contacted Egg plc, most likely through communication methods he used on cybercrime forums, and explained that if they weren't let into the scheme, access to Business Wire would remain under their control permanently. It was a flawless act of betrayal against Ivan. Yet, if Egg plc refused to let them into the operation, Alexander and Vadim would be in serious danger. Every hour without a response from Egg plc. And since Ivan's RATs usually followed the same patterns, Alexander found it relatively quickly. Next, the two most likely redirected the RAT's command and control traffic to their own servers, or outright modified the RAT's configuration, which effectively cut off Ivan's access to Business Wire's servers. Finally, they contacted Egg plc, most likely through communication methods he used on cybercrime forums, and explained that if they weren't let into the scheme, access to Business Wire would remain under their control permanently. It was a flawless act of betrayal against Ivan. Yet, if Egg plc refused to let them into the operation, Alexander and Vadim would be in serious danger. Every hour without a response from Egg plc stretched painfully longer, and just as they were resigning themselves to having made the biggest mistake of their lives, a notification popped up on one of their PCs. It was from Egg plc. Luckily for the two, Egg plc agreed to bring them into the operation, but on one condition: they had to work alongside Ivan and help expand the operation. Obviously, Ivan wasn't happy about one of his supposed friends double-crossing him, because, after all, this meant splitting the profits with two new partners. But little did Ivan know that splitting his money was only the start of a series of disastrous events for both him, his team, and the entire operation. March 2012, Chicago, United States. This is an employee of Strauss Friedberg, a private cybersecurity company, and he just arrived at PR Newswire's headquarters. Apparently, the U.S. authorities noticed suspicious trading patterns related to some of their press releases and told PR Newswire to hire some IT specialist for a checkup. Once the IT expert enters the office, he quickly gets to work and notices dozens of different malicious programs installed on their machines and networks. It was truly a cesspool of malware, suggesting that Egg plc wasn't the only one running an insider trading operation. These companies made huge mistakes by getting phished and having keyloggers record every password they typed, something that could have been prevented by today's sponsor, NordPass. This is because NordPass has a powerful and secure one-click autofill, meaning that even if one of the employees clicked on a phishing link, the keyloggers wouldn't have been able to steal any passwords because no passwords would have been typed anywhere. When a user visits a phishing site, even if the domain visually resembles the legitimate one, NordPass recognizes the mismatch and refuses to autofill credentials. But that's not all. With NordPass, you can also generate, store, and share all your passwords and passkeys securely, like when you're switching between desktop and mobile on the go. Janning NordPass immediately. and once you set it up, off in Nord. Ivan Turkniov arrived. March 2012, Kiev, Ukraine. Ivan Turkniov arrives back home, turns on his PC, and starts to access the different compromised press release systems. Everything is as usual. He finds a few new releases and uploads them to Egg PLC's server. But when he tries to log into PR Newswire's system, he can't. The login details don't work, and when he tries to access through his RAT, it simply doesn't respond. His access had been completely cut off. Even worse, the only reason that anyone would clean up PR Newswire was that some of the traders were being too obvious with their trades. Ivan's next move is to notify Egg PLC, to whom he explains that his clients are making a serious fuss and that they should be careful. Next, Ivan alerts the rest of the hackers, and they're really worried. They know they've been discovered, and if anyone manages to trace the traffic back to them, they'd be in serious trouble. But despite the growing risk, Egg PLC forces them to continue. He demands they regain access to PR Newswire at all costs, a move that would put everyone in danger. Because while they did regain access, someone was quietly watching their every move from inside PRN's servers. June 2012, Kiev Airport, Ukraine. It's early in the morning when two men in black suits arrive at the Kiev airport. They are quickly greeted by a contingent of well-dressed men and women who escort them to a blacked-out SUV. The two men are members of the U.S. Secret Service, and they're in Ukraine on a special mission. They've managed to track down a bunch of cybercriminals to Kiev and are requesting assistance from the Ukrainian intelligence service, one of the most capable, yet also one of the most corrupt, agencies in the world, a fact that will play a major role later on. Apparently, the Secret Service, supported by the SEC, managed to trace hacks against PR Newswire and MarketWired to a few different addresses in Kiev, and 3 of those addresses belong to none other than Ivan Turkniov, Vadim Lermalovich, and Alexander Leremenko. Either way, the Ukrainians agree to help and begin surveilling the 3 suspects and their circle of friends. That's when they realize that all of them, even their friends, are between 20 and 26-year-old and don't have any jobs, but somehow have an apparently unlimited amount of money. It quickly becomes clear that the entire group is making money illegally, and thus, the authorities decide to make their first move. November 2012, Kiev, Ukraine. In the police station, 9 teams get ready to carry out raids all over the city. They know that they have to time everything perfectly, immobilize their targets as soon as possible, and prevent them from getting their hands on any of their devices. The teams are made up mostly of Ukrainian police and US agents, both familiar with hacking-related criminals. But even though they're experienced, they know it won't be easy and understand that resistance is extremely possible.
Капець, чувак. Стій! На землю!
Та це якась хрінь!
At the end of the operation, law enforcement managed to arrest 9 individuals and confiscated several computers belonging to Ivan's gang. On these devices, they find hundreds of stolen press releases, and even better, chat logs directly talking about the scheme. And you'd think that this is where the story ends, right? However, this is where it gets extremely complicated. You see, everyone who had been hacking with Ivan Turkniov was arrested and identified. But when questioned, they all said the same thing. They didn't work for Ivan Turkniov. Instead, they claimed to be working for someone called Egg PLC. There was just one problem. None of the hackers actually knew who Egg PLC was. The only person who did know was Pavel Dubovoy, someone who, at that point, wasn't on the radar of either the US or Ukrainian authorities. In any event, the US agents believed that they could somehow connect the dots from the hackers to Egg plc, and after a few days of investigating the arrested hackers, they found something interesting. Apparently, Ivan had bank accounts in Estonia, and one of his accounts received $95,000 from a Ukrainian construction company linked to a man called Arkady Dubovoy, who interestingly resided in the US. But this wasn't the only thing they found. Inside of the chat logs and emails, there were messages from someone called Pavel Dubovoy, and these messages contained a list of US companies that were planning to release their earnings reports after the stock market closed, and orders to get his hands on these documents to upload them to a shared server. After these details were discovered by both the Americans and the Ukrainians, things started to get extremely weird. For whatever reason, the suspect stopped talking, and the Ukrainian authorities allegedly declined to help with any further investigations. All of this eventually culminated in the Ukrainians dropping charges against all of the hackers and concluding the investigation into the gang. Apparently, the Ukrainian intelligence service, or a small department inside of it, cut a deal with Ivan Turkniov. This deal included Ivan giving up over $500,000 in watches, his house, and his sports cars. But most interesting was the last part of the deal. He had to start working for the Ukrainian intelligence service himself and give their members access to all of the press releases he hacked for Egg plc. In return, Ivan and his friends were let free and allowed to continue whatever operation they were doing with Egg plc. It's unknown what exactly happened, but it's possible that the only reason the charges were dropped is because Pavel Dubovoy, Arkady's brother, and let's not forget a member of an extremely influential Ukrainian family, pulled some strings to secure the release of Ivan and the other hackers. You see, Pavel is known to have ties to both Alexander Turkniov, the former head of Ukraine's intelligence service, and Alexander Dubovoy, a prominent Ukrainian politician and member of the Dubovoy family. And while there's no concrete evidence, it's possible that one of them made a call to have the hackers released. This part is truly murky, but one thing was for sure. The US Secret Service, FBI, and the SEC really didn't like it. But since they weren't allowed to pursue any further action against the hackers inside of Ukraine, the team had to leave the country knowing that their targets were still free, and most likely, still hacking. On the other hand, they at least got a new target, Pavel Dubovoy, a person that would most likely get them closer to Egg plc. Even better, all the hackers had been identified, and even though they weren't in US custody, the Secret Service wouldn't give up on them and began waiting for the perfect moment to grab them. November 2014, Cancun, Mexico. It's a beautiful day in a Cancun resort while Vadim Lermolovich, one of the members of Ivan's hacking team, is relaxing at the pool. The sun is shining, his drink is fresh, and he's simply loving life. Later that day, he goes to a restaurant with his girlfriend, where the two have an amazing dinner. But seconds after he pays for the food, a group of Mexican law enforcement officials suddenly storm the restaurant. They ignore everyone, go straight to Vadim, and arrest him on the spot. At the same time, a different group of officers break into his hotel room to confiscate all of his devices. Vadim committed the one cardinal mistake, leaving Ukraine as a wanted US criminal. Interestingly, nobody in Mexico really knew him, which opens the question of who alerted the Mexicans about him being there in the first place. Either way, the Mexican authorities quickly informed him that he wasn't welcome in their country and that they'd send him straight back to Ukraine. But once Vadim arrives at the airport, he's loaded into a plane with only a few other people inside. Something seems weird, but after all, a plane is a plane, he thinks. But still, during the first few hours of the flight, he can't get that weird feeling out of his mind. Something seems strange. Then, only a few hours into the flight,
Ladies and gentlemen, we're starting our descent. Please fasten your seatbelts.
They're landing, and it's not in Ukraine. That's when Vadim realizes what's going on. He panics, and while he looks around, he notices that one of the passengers is looking straight at him and has an earpiece. Then, when the airplane finally lands, the pilot announces the destination. Welcome to the United States city of Dallas, and as your pilot, I wish all of you a great time. Suddenly, everyone inside the airplane stands up, looks at Vadim, and announces that they're all members of the Secret Service, and that Vadim is now on US soil, which means that he's going straight to jail. For almost 2 years, the Secret Service had been monitoring everyone who had been detained during the Kiev raids in 2012. And of course, they were simply waiting for them to slip up. And most likely, it was US authorities that alerted the Mexicans about his stay in Cancun. Interestingly, though, there was no official extradition from the Mexican authorities, which means that someone in Mexico did the US a favor by putting Vadim in a flight that coincidentally had a layover in the US, and of course, letting US agents onto the plane before it even took off. Ironically, Vadim was first saved by corrupt officials in Ukraine, only to be arrested by a different set of corrupt officials in Mexico, who, unlike the Ukrainians, seemed to be allied with the US Secret Service. Either way, Vadim was now in US custody, and he knew a lot. The only question was whether he'd talk. But that wasn't even the worst blow to Egg PLC's operation. Back in Ukraine, Pavel Dubovoy had apparently gone rogue and started to secretly sell press releases behind Egg PLC's back, something that would force Egg PLC to finally step out of the shadows. Late 2014, somewhere in Russia. Late at night, Egg PLC is sitting in his home. It's raining outside and he can't sleep. He knows about the raids, has been notified about Lermolovich's arrest and about the Dubovoy's secret operation, but doesn't know what to do. A few sleepless hours later, he decides to directly contact Pavel Dubovoy, to whom he explains that he knows about his rogue operation and that as of today, both him and his brother Arkady are permanently cut off of the scheme. But he adds that if they wanted back in, they need to meet him in Ukraine in person. Now, under pressure from the ringleader, Pavel quickly arranged for his brother to come to Ukraine, and once he was there, a meeting between someone named Valerie, who may in fact be Egg PLC, and the two Dubovoy brothers took place in January 2015. During this meeting, the brothers were offered to regain access to the press releases by paying a deposit of $300,000 on top of another $100,000 per week member fee. These sums were too high for the Dubovoy brothers, who declined the offer. But even though they declined to officially regain access to the press releases, they wouldn't give up their access to free money so easily and tried using a different, though far riskier, path. Things are getting complicated at this point, so let's recap for a second. At this point, it's early 2015. The group was created in 2009 by Valerie and Egg PLC, who recruited Ivan Turkniov and later his hacking acquaintances to infiltrate press release companies. Of these hackers, all have been identified, forced to work with Ukrainian intelligence services, and one of them has been arrested in Mexico before being sent to the US. Next, there were dozens upon dozens of traders and hedge funds paying middlemen, such as the Dubovoy brothers, for access to unreleased press releases. These middlemen would then provide their clients, for example, US pastor Vitaly Korchevsky, with trading accounts registered under the middleman's names. These accounts are then topped off with money from the customer. This is done so the middlemen can see how much money each of their customers made and easily take their commission. These accounts were then also analyzed by Egg PLC and his team to make sure that the middlemen, such as the Dubovoy brothers, paid the proper commission to Egg PLC and the hackers. But because the Dubovoys had gone rogue, Egg PLC completely cut them off the scheme, so everyone else recruited by the Dubovoys, such as Vitaly Korchevsky, was now also out of the game. Nevertheless, Pavel had been involved in the scheme since its beginning, and thus knew a few other people who also became middlemen under Egg PLC. One of these people was Valery Pichenko, the husband of one of Pavel's family members, and even though it's unknown exactly what happened, Valerie started to secretly send relevant press releases to the Dubovoys. The Dubovoys were now playing a dangerous game, and if their involvement was discovered, they'd be in serious danger. Even worse, the US had made substantial progress in their investigation by linking Arkady Dubovoy, his construction company, and Pavel Dubovoy to the Ukrainian hackers. But this wasn't all. Apparently, they also found a bunch of trading accounts registered under the Dubovoy brothers' names, and these were extremely suspicious. First of all, they were being funded by overseas shell companies, and secondly, they were trading an extremely suspicious pattern which perfectly matched insider information trading patterns. Interestingly, even some of the Dubovoy straw companies had trading accounts, which followed the same patterns of strange funding and insider trading. At that time, the authorities discovered over 34 of these accounts, which totaled over $100 million in profit, and obviously a win rate that was simply impossible. There were probably more accounts that the authorities didn't find, but they knew that Arkady, as well as several of the people logging into these accounts, were residing in the US. It was the perfect opportunity to strike. August 11th, 2015. Georgia, United States. At 5 a.m., Arkady Dubovoy wakes up in his mansion. He walks to the bathroom to get into the shower, but as he walks through the hallway, he notices a bunch of cars stopping in front of his house. Suddenly, he hears the back door of his house being smashed open. He knows that he's messed up, and that right now, there's nothing he can do anymore. The authorities arrest him and his son without any resistance, but they're not alone. At the same time, several other arrests are happening all over the US, and one of them is none other than Pastor Vitaly Korchevsky, who is arrested in his Philadelphia home. The Dubovoy group in the US was falling apart. Everyone was being arrested, tons of electronics were being confiscated, and dozens of homes were being searched for evidence. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, Pavel Dubovoy, the head of the Dubovoy group, was informed about these events and immediately initiated his emergency plan. He grabbed a few thousand in cash, a fake Russian passport, and jumped into a blacked-out car that drove him straight towards Belarus. He knew that this moment marked the end of the Ukrainian Dubovoy operation, which netted the group over $100 million. Pavel had truly screwed up. The US knew who he was, and if word about him continuing the secret insider scheme with Egg plc's documents came out, Egg plc would probably hunt him down as well. Pavel had to go underground, at least for a while. At this point, everything gets messy again. It seems as if the entire Ukrainian part of Egg plc's operation came to an end, and Ivan Turkniov, the hacker who had been working for both Egg plc and rogue elements in the Ukrainian intelligence service, seemed to have been cut off as well. This is because a few months later, Ivan, who probably needed money, was hired by a conglomerate of Ukrainian companies to hack into the country's fiscal service database. There, he altered the tax information of his clients to most likely pay less in taxes. Unluckily for him, the authorities found out, and this time the crime was conducted inside of Ukraine's territory, which meant that he was now fair game, and he knew this. Ivan takes everything he needs and drives straight into Ukraine's eastern war zone. From there, he crosses into Russia, where he most likely met Egg plc, and has since simply vanished. Another important person, the last free hacker, Alexander Leremenko, was still in Ukraine, and he too seems to have been cut off from Egg plc. This is because after the group's collapse in 2015, Leremenko started to work for Artemy R., a well-known and well-connected businessman from Ukraine. Artemy founded Benjamin Capital Group, a UK-registered company that served merely as a front for individuals seeking to buy insider information, which, as you might think, was stolen by hacking into newswire services. Essentially, it was the same operation as Egg plc's, but without Egg plc or the Dubovoys, and instead of a 3-person hacker team, it was carried out solely by Alexander. Interestingly, while working for Artemy, Alexander learned how to infiltrate the SEC's EDGAR system, which is the primary database where public companies file their financial reports and disclosures. By hacking into EDGAR, Alexander could access sensitive, non-public information before it became widely available, which helped Artemy's clients make money by, of course, illegal insider trading. Artemy didn't seem as professional as Egg plc. Instead of paying everyone, he kept all the money for a luxurious lifestyle and didn't even pay the staff he hired to maintain the appearance of legitimate business. nor Alexander, who started to get tired of his boss's shenanigans. But sadly for him, the situation got dark very quickly. He wanted to leave this operation after about a year, but Artemy kept him working there under threats of violence, because, after all, Alexander didn't have Egg plc, Ivan Turkniov, nor the Dubovoy family's protection anymore. He had been left completely alone. Things eventually got so bad that Artemy's company got a bad reputation for squandering its clients' money, and some of these clients tried to poach Alexander for their own insider trading operations. However, when Artemy got wind of this, he hired thugs to beat up Alexander multiple times, and according to the Ukrainian cybersecurity chief, he might have even been killed. The other possibility is that some of these wealthier clients helped Alexander escape to Russia, where he'd continue his work but in complete secrecy. Interestingly, an indictment from 2019 claims that Alexander is actually still alive, and as you might guess, still hacking into newswires and the SEC's Edgar system, but this time for a Hong Kong-based investing company called Spirit Trade Limited, which was led by a bunch of people living in the US, Russia, Asia, and Ukraine. This could mean that someone successfully poached him from Artemy, but it's also interesting that this indictment lists Alexander's residence as Kiev, Ukraine, because given Artemy's threats to Alexander, this might not be accurate anymore. At the end of the day, Alexander Leremenko, like Ivan Turkniov, simply vanished. Their story stands as a powerful example of how a few young, talented men, initially just trying to make a living, found themselves on the wrong path. Perhaps they had no other way to earn significant money, and a few young, talented men, initially just trying to make a living, found themselves on the wrong path. Perhaps they had no other way to earn significant money, and once that money flowed, things began to take unexpected turns, culminating in many people getting hurt or landing in prison. For example, the group that was arrested in the US ended up completely fractured, with everyone pointing fingers at each other and people snitching left and right. Obviously, all of them also ended up in prison, and even though the sentences vary from person to person, the lowest one, which was given to Arkady and Igor Dubovoy, was of 6 months and 3 years of supervised release. On the other hand, Vitaly Korchevsky got 5 years in prison and destroyed not only his own image, but also that of his church and its followers. His case is particularly sad because he used a lot of the illicit gains to help his community by buying homes for families without a credit score, and many of these people will now be without any help. Even Pavel Dubovoy, who most likely made tens of millions and wasn't caught in the US, had to flee his home country for a few years before returning in 2017, where he was immediately involved in another massive controversy in which Ukraine's Anti-Corruption Bureau accused him of offering $500,000 to help with a case involving a frozen bank account. Truly, there are only 2 winners in this story, Egg plc and Valerie, who might even be the same person and have managed to become extremely wealthy, with estimates of the profits going up into the hundreds of millions of dollars, all while remaining anonymous. And most importantly, without doing too much dangerous work. And even though there are theories about who they are, nobody is truly sure about their identities. Finally, don't forget that day trading is 99% a scam, where the only people that make money are insiders, HFTs, and a handful of people who feel the market. So stay away.
I just bought the world's bougiest GPU, an Asus ROG Astral Dahab, or Gold Edition, an $8,000 RTX 5090 with 6.5 grams of 24-karat gold on it. But where could I possibly get a gaming PC, a throne if you will, that's worthy of this Sultan of GPUs? How about the awesome Taipei Tech Mall that happens to be just a few blocks from where I did the deal to get my hands on this bad boy? You may remember Guanghua Digital Plaza from the last time that I visited and walked out with this incredible machine. Well, this time I'm back, and the stakes are even higher because I'm not planning to give this PC away to the first LTT fan I see. This time it's personal. So Sponsored by ASUS, who wanted in on the action, I'm gonna be searching for the builder that I can trust to do it justice in terms of performance and aesthetics, and because I'm spending my own money, I'm also looking for a decent deal. Step one is to look for my candidate builders. I'm gonna be asking them to send me a price, and perhaps more importantly, I'm gonna be asking them to send me a portfolio, because these are small shops and they don't have the room to show off all their capabilities right on the show floor. Like, look at this place. They got a pile of GPUs in the back of them that's as tall as Taipei 101. Of course, I don't need a GPU, I already have that. I need everything else. Do you do custom PC builds? I have the coolest GPU on Earth, this one. And I'm looking to do a build that is worthy of it. I don't want to waste money, because I already waste enough money. Yes. It has gold on it, right? And this ain't gonna be no just like get 3 quotes, pick the middle. They gotta convince me. Oh, okay, these guys build some cool stuff. Can I pick up a system by Friday?
Friday. Oh, it's okay, it's okay.
Isn't that wild, dude? Top of the line gaming system? Oh, you want it fast? Oh, Friday. Easy. That's in like 4 days. Can you send me a quote?
Yeah.
We're gonna ask maybe 3 shops.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna pick the one that is gonna do the build. Oh, these guys have my attention. That is a cool build. Curved hardline water cooling. I mean, Andy, I'm sure you know what car this is, but it seems cool.
Hachiroku.
Okay,
86.
there you go. English?
Yes.
Yes! I got the coolest GPU.
Oh, you got this.
Yeah, I need the rest of the system. I want it to be a good spec, but not wasteful. Now, I asked 3 builders for quotes here in the mall. I will only choose one. Basically, I need a good quotation for the parts, and then most importantly, I want a really cool concept for the case and the style and the cooling to match the GPU. I want your concept,
Okay.
your art.
Okay, I will discuss with my engineer.
Okay.
See how to do it.
Of course, it would feel wrong if we didn't give the OG a crack at building our throne. Hey, man!
Hi.
How you doing? This time I'm not filming in secret.
Okay.
I have a new assignment for you should you choose to accept it. I got my hands on a very special GPU, and I'm asking 3 shops. I want a quote. I want them to send me examples of what they think are their best builds they've done that they think would be worthy as a throne for this GPU to sit on. I need it by Friday.
Again? I'll try my best.
But he's got to beat out the other 2 competitors.
Okay.
Okay? All right, good to see you, man.
Me too.
Somehow I feel like he's gonna have a shot at it. Now it's time to do my 2 favorite things. Eat Chef 78 spicy fried chicken, and reviewing PC Builder quotes. So just as a refresher, we've got the quote from the OG. We know he has what it takes, but he's pretty busy. How bad does he want another commission build right now? Builder number 2, up on the 6th floor, clearly has the skills and the artistry, but is their pricing any good? And finally, on the bottom floor, lots of showcase PCs, but do they have a concept for me? Dude, this is so hard to pick. We're anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000, but all the specs are very different and none of them are wrong. My OG buddy's got the 16-core processor, Trident Z5 Royal memory, not to mention 4TB SSD, and a surprise in the water cooling. That's enticing. But then Builder 2 on the 6th floor, okay, we only get the 8-core processor, but realistically that's probably all we need, and I'm apparently getting a $1,300 custom cooling loop with a custom gold paint job and like some kind of like diorama on the bottom floor. I think really leaned into the bang for the buck. Like, that's a pretty good value, other than maybe the motherboard and the cooler are a little bit out of line with the rest of it. And then the other 2, not as affordable, closer to $4,000. How do I pick? No matter who I go with, I'm gonna feel so bad. Oh, Shop 2 sent an updated mock-up of the diorama. It has like camels and stuff. But the case from the OG, it puts the GPU like right front and center, and it has a better spec. I wanna know what $1,800 of custom cooling and theme design and modification gets me here in the tech mall. Let's go with Builder 2. Come on, Andy. Time for the pickup. Let's go. Well, they're not ready yet. Apparently expo issues due to having 4 sticks of memory.
I've never seen that before.
If only there was some video they could have watched where they could have seen this coming.
Front panel will be in the top. It will fall if you put like a normal way to carry it.
Okay, thank you. He just explained to me that if I tip the box on the way to the hotel, it will destroy the system. It will fall apart.
Okay.
How the hell am I gonna get it home?
Oh, get it home. Get home.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like to the hotel.
No, that's fine.
Oh, God.
I might have to give it away after all. Time to find out if there's any conceivable way that I can transport this. Oh, and I guess this is as good a time as any to mention that ASUS is celebrating 30 years of GPUs. 30 years of bangers, I might add. They've done some of the coolest overclocking models over the years. Hybrid liquid and air water cooling, fully water blocked ones. They were one of the earliest to do the massive PCBs and coolers that have become so popular now. For better or for worse. Coming live to you from the Taiwan show. Now he wants it. It's funny. You're gross. And I guess we'll see you again next week. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Bye.
And WAN show's finally over, which means It's time. Luke, you're coming into this a little cold, but I thought you'd enjoy this. We will be unboxing a $12,000 US computer from the tech mall from last year. And to give you some idea of what we're coming up against, that is a fill bottle. For some reason, that's in my accessory package.
Okay.
We've got a box for a water cooling reservoir. That makes sense.
Yep.
Power supply box with extra cables, 1200 casual watts.
Fancy, platinum.
Extra hardware. Always love to see system integrators include that. One tube, water cooling and me, by Luc Lafreniere. An extra sleeve extension and some extra cable combs.
Oh, hold on. You can't do that.
That's right. Okay, we were given specific instructions that the correct way to open this is to slice open the bottom and then lift the box off the top.
Oh, it's water cooled.
Also, it's apparently extremely fragile.
Oh.
Oh, speaking of which,
Wait, what?
there's some extra figures. These appear to be hand painted, at least the ones that are painted.
How are you gonna get this home?
I think it's PC giveaway 2 Electric Boogaloo. But first, we need to see how they did.
Yeah.
That means I don't really want to slice open the bottom of the case because I need to carry it around and give it to someone. I don't got no packing tape.
Okay, so are we gonna try to lift out of the top then?
I'm not actually familiar with the case manufacturer Dark Flash.
Never heard of them.
If I didn't have a diorama in my computer, this foam could probably help it survive the trip. Oh God. Okay, well I can see why they want us to. Here, how about this? I've got the box.
I'm worried the. Get the.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it looks so good already. I can barely even see in there. That looks awesome.
This was their initial pitch, and I was gonna go with the OG. And then while I was deciding, they sent an updated pitch. And I was like, yo,
Do that one.
we gotta see what they cook.
Wow.
Dude.
I wonder what on here is custom and what was just already default on the case.
I can tell you this GPU mount probably wasn't part of the case.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
But you can get at 2 to 3 of the DisplayPort ports, which ought to be enough for anyone.
Oh my.
Oh, you're
You can kind of see it through back here.
Dude! One of them must be like a model train enthusiast or something, or like a tabletop gamer. Is this case available in gold? I don't think
no
so. I
idea.
think they did this. It's pretty good though. You guys ready? Big moment, big reveal. Oh my God.
What?
They've got an oil ring!
Oh, and it actually looks
It's the color of oil!
Yeah, that's actually kind of sick.
That is awesome.
Oh, the cable combs look awesome. Oh, the RAM looks fantastic.
They blew it away.
They really did. This is fantastic.
They completely understood the assignment.
The tubing runs are great.
Immaculate. Look at
Yeah.
this tube.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking there really aren't that many components that actually theme match this graphics card, but other than painting the case, I think this is off-the-shelf stuff, and they just nailed it. The Trident Royals, the cable combs, the like oil-looking water cooling fluid.
The sand.
The sand was an incredible touch.
Now there was one drama as they were creating the case. They were having trouble getting it stable. I don't know if it's like a cultural thing because this is now 2 systems in a row from the tech mall. They like filling all 4 memory slots. And on AMD,
Yeah.
that's not a great idea for performance and compatibility. Let's see what they managed with custom timings. Time for this computer to become as turned on as I am.
Hey!
Hey! Uh-oh.
You can't plug that in.
It's HDMI. Wait.
Oh, I mean, it'll work.
Yeah, you could use the power of the GPU through the onboard port.
Just makes me want to cry.
Does
It
look-
looks so wrong.
And it loses a little bit of performance.
Yeah. Do you have a keyboard?
What? Didn't we have one secured?
I thought you have a keyboard.
No. I said I have a mouse and a mouse pad.
I mean, controller time.
Are we firing this thing up?
Sure.
You want to do the honors?
Yeah.
Woohoo, buddy!
Would you leave it on full RGB like this?
Yeah, I'm tacky like that. Okay, no bloat that I can see. Well, I mean, other than the usual. These antenna quick connects are cool. I haven't actually seen these yet. And the I/O on this motherboard is flipping wild.
Oh wow, that's nice.
It's not cheap, but it has onboard 2.5 gig, onboard 5 gig networking. It has 2 40 gig USB-C ports along with the 2 10 gig USB-C ports, bunch more USB. Like, this is an out of this world motherboard, which is good because it's like $600 or $700. I don't love that they seem to have all the fans just at max speed. I guess from a performance standpoint, oh, they don't.
They're not.
I thought they just had everything as a flippin' exhaust, but nope, these are reverse blade fans, they're intakes. All right, that's really nice to see. What about this one? Okay, so we got 2 intakes, 4 exhausts, which means things aren't gonna be that balanced, but also 3 of those exhausts are through a radiator, so
They're a decently thick one too.
shouldn't be too far off. And I guess to maybe their credit then, the intakes are running at full speed. So maybe that was intentional. We haven't looked at the cable management at the back. I got so distracted by the shiny, I just completely stopped caring.
Sure. Oh, there we go. Okay. I mean, it looks nice, and clearly they painted even in areas that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see. Do you have a screwdriver?
Always.
LTDstore.com.
Nice.
Ah. Oh, yeah. Inside of this is painted as well. This looks really nice. Okay, and it's fine. But to be completely honest, it was totally covered by this whole thing, so it doesn't really matter.
While we're waiting for my games to finish transferring, why don't we have a look at what memory speed they ended up getting it running at? 6,000 megatransfers per second. But what did it cost us? Ah, timings. So this is supposed to be a CL28 kit. We were running at CL36. Not the choice I personally would have made. If you must have all 4 things populated and you want the best performance, there are dummy modules that you can put in. I just think they probably didn't want to do that because then they would have had to use different memory. I don't believe G-Skill makes dummy modules for their Royal, and this was obviously the correct memory for this build. Obviously. This is it, Luke.
It's time to go.
The Sultan of gaming PCs, and I'm on a controller.
And plugged in through the motherboard, which still pains me.
We're at 4K, ray traced ultra, getting a casual, 150 frames per second, just like whatever, right? Like whatever, right? Because we have a 5090 that is gold.
It adds a little bit of performance.
Dude, the game looks great, so.
Yeah, it does.
Can confirm, if you spend $8,000 on a golden graphics card, I can tell you 2 things about yourself. 1, you're pretty bad with your money. That's really real stupid, buddy. And then number 2 is you're playing Cyberpunk at 100 plus FPS. Yeah. So you got both of those things going for you. It's time. I still kind of can't believe we're giving away a $12,000 computer.
Yeah.
We need to settle on a plan.
I had an idea that we put it in the box, and then you pretend you're struggling to move it, and the first person that helps you just gets a $12,000 computer.
Why do
but they
all
might
of
not
your
be
ideas
into
involve
computers.
you being strong and me being weak? Oh my God, it's so heavy. This is sponsored by ASUS, so it was pretty convenient for me that they happened to spec it with an ROG power supply and like a top-of-the-line ASUS motherboard to go with the GPU. Okay, I'm just gonna take a little break.
Can I join your videos?
Can you join the video?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, hi. Nice to meet you. Are you traveling here?
No.
Here, you can carry it.
Oh my God.
Okay.
You got it? Careful.
Yeah.
You okay?
Okay.
Okay, do you think you could carry that for 1 minute?
Yeah.
Do you think you could carry it for 5 minutes?
No.
Did you see what's in here? Do you play games?
Yeah.
What games do you play?
We will play CS2, but my computer is FPS too low.
FPS too low?
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna be a problem anymore. This is the gold edition RTX 5090. 5090.
Oh my God, this is cool.
And then we have a Ryzen 7 9800 X3D. Your challenge is you have to get it home. Congratulations.
Oh my God, thank you, bro. Thank you so much.
地战的比我们好，我现在感觉无比的强大，我真的很高兴，很高兴。然后你们记得给那个多票点批评，然后记得3连转发，谢谢你们。
Do you know how much this costs?
$5,000.
US you're doing?
Yeah, US.
360,000 NTD, 12,000 US. The gold GPU is 8,000 US.
It's actual gold.
Not all of it,
Some of it.
but there's real gold on it. So they did a special golden paint job to go with it and special golden fittings to match everything.
best day ever.
Well, I'm just glad that we could be part of it. Enjoy your new computer, man. What game did you not get enough FPS in, by the way?
PS2.
Oh, CS2.
Yeah.
Oh, so your computer is pretty slow.
Lower than 50 FPS.
That'll be no problem.
Yeah, you want to play CS2? I think maybe more like 500, 600 FPS. Okay, bye.
Bye.
The shell-shocked look on his face when I said $12,000 US, but he had no idea how to process that. I was rooting for him because
Me too.
if someone else snagged it, well, he was like, "Ugh,"
That'd be brutal.
he would have regretted that forever. Do you want to go get some soup dumplings?
Sure.
Let's do it.
When you decided to stop there, I was like, this is his one shot.
Yeah.
He has to come now, or else
That
he's not
other
going to do
stream
it.
was busy. I think someone would have caught us.
Yeah.
Well, our soup dumpling place was closed, but we have Moji, which is apparently mango cheese tea.
Yeah, I don't think there's actual cheese,
I
but
don't
it's
think
very
there's
good.
cheese in it.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know what's not cheesy as well? ASUS is actually auctioning for charity